Hour number 3, Prater in the Bowl Game, 5 o'clock on your Monday. You got the Final Four to look forward to. 2 monster games in the women's bracket tonight. The rematch, Caitlin Clark versus Angel Reese. We'll talk about that a little bit later this hour. But for now, let's get to our Double Tap Pub hotline and welcome in the commissioner of the Mountain West Conference, one of our favorite guests, Gloria Nevarez, with us right now. And Gloria, you've had a busy couple of weeks. I've seen coast to coast traveling, hanging out with some big wigs over there, and hope you've had time to enjoy the tournaments. How are you?
Thanks for having me. Great to hear your voice again. And it's been a lot, but it's been a good lot. You know what I mean?
How have you taken in the tournament when you're able to? What are your thoughts on this thing so far?
You mean the March Madness?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so we try to travel with all of our teams around the country. Last year, I went first round with the women's UNLV team. This year, I was in Salt Lake with Nevada and also our gymnastics champs. And, just for us in the Mountain West, having 6 teams on the men's side was, it's a special moment in time. It was really, really cool.
Gloria Nevarez with us, Mountain West commissioner. Yeah, the 6 teams in the tournament. We got a bunch of questions coming on that in that regard as well. Gloria, San Diego State gets to the Sweet 16. All in all, looks like if you take the last couple of years, wow, you guys have made a couple bucks here in this tournament. That must really help.
Certainly doesn't hurt, but also I think when, schools make runs like that, last year's, champ game, Sweet 16, having 6 teams in, it raises, I think, the profile for everyone in the league and helps with recruiting and getting the messaging out. So it's really a positive all the way around.
Gloria Nevarez, she's the Mountain West Commissioner, joining us live right here on Idaho Sports Talk. We always appreciate your time, Gloria. Thank you very much. We got a whole bunch of issues to dive into. One quick more about the NCAA Tournament. And obviously here in a few minutes, we got one of the most, if not the most anticipated women's games. I know a lot of your focus has been on the men's, but certainly you're a former baller yourself. You're a UMass basketball player. I don't know if you ever got to the NCAA Tournament, but what do you think about about Caitlin Clark? What about Angel Reese and the movement that they're making when it comes to the advancement of college women's basketball?
I love it. And I've termed it, in my mind, it feels like a renaissance around not just women's basketball, women's sports. And unfortunately, we had the issue around the women's championship, I think it was a couple years now, that really shone some light on it. And I think you see media partners, you see commercial sponsor partners really leaning in and embracing. And it's, chicken egg. Does the exposure come first and then the fan base, or the fan base and then the exposure? And I think we're just seeing both finally start to move in the right direction. And it's just so great, I think, because it's an amazing sporting event to watch.
All right, let's dive into our issues of the day. We're going to cover a little bit of college basketball scheduling. I want to talk about CFP, college football playoff and revenue. You guys put out a statement about a month ago talking about being disappointed in some of the aspects of that final deal. Maybe even talk a little Oregon State, Washington State. But in terms of college basketball scheduling, I mean, the Mountain West, as Johnny said, you guys have got it going on. More teams, more wins. By my judgment, by my math, somewhere between $35 and $40 million into the conference coffers over these next 2 years based on the results of the last 2 years. But we all remember that Selection Sunday a couple of weeks ago where the commissioner, the spokesman, looked at us in the camera and said, the Mountain West just isn't scheduling outside of its own conference. We've talked to Javen, your guy there in the conference office. He's got numbers that dispute all that. So I'm not so much worried about what happened behind the scenes. I'm trying to figure out how can it never happen again from your perspective. What kind of conversations are you going to have with your basketball coaches this offseason about better scheduling? And I guess my first question is, have you talked to the committee, the selection committee, about what they really, really, really want?
Yeah, and Tom Wistrell is our representative this year. And I will say, no caveats. I thought we were represented extremely well this year. And I had all the same feelings on Selection Day. And one of my friends and mentors says, hey, better to have 6 teams in at lower, and being underseeded than being left out. I'm like, okay, that's a good point. Still, to your point, we have to constantly look at strength of schedule. And, when things are said about how we are not scheduling, we need to look at the data to see whether there is an adjustment that needs to be made. And that data Javen shared with you showed that we did have the strength of schedule this year. And so while on the one hand, there are a lot of metrics, on the other hand, in the room, there's terms like eye test, there's terms like brand cachet that aren't really supposed to make or break decisions, but it's human nature. I think they weigh into the room. So we do have to be very definitive about when we think about our schedule formats, base it on data, base it on results and selection, but also to really combat that brand story and make sure the world knows. And I think we did a good job of it coming into this year. You know, it's every group of however many people on the committee, 12, get a different 12 people, you'll get a different 68 teams, you know? So there is some subjectivity, but, you know, what we can do, what we can control is continuing to look at our schedule, make informed decisions, and continuing to inform our coaches on, you know, how and the best ways to schedule.
You know, I know it's early in the process and there's a lot of off-season meetings and spring meetings and everything going on. So I don't expect that there's a final answer or maybe talking points. Will you talk to coaches? Do you feel like that there's a tweak, or are you happy with where you are and it's status quo, business as usual, keep scheduling the way you're scheduling, just go out and win some of those games?
Right now, I think the latter, because we really did have the schedules. We had the strength of schedule. Certainly winning all the games cures a lot of questions. But what we did well is that even when teams stubbed their toe or didn't win some of those games they expected to win, their numbers were still high. Yeah. Their net ranking, their national rankings, their strength of schedule. So right now, the coaches on the men's side are doing it really well. And it's not a one-stop shopping, right? You got to know what type of team you're going to have. You got to know what type of team you're playing against are going to have. And with the transfer portal, that's tough. It's a moving target.
Gloria Nevarez, Mountain West commissioner, with us here. Prater on the ball game, KTIK the ticket. So Gloria, I don't know if that means you're going to urge any of your coaches in your league to maybe schedule more challenging, I'll call it committee-friendly non-con opponents. And I guess my question is, does the new 20-game Mountain West regular season schedule possibly disrupt that?
So, you know, when you talk about conference schedules, in an ideal world, in a vacuum, the ideal schedule is a double round robin. So you play everyone home and away and you can crown a true champion. But as leagues get larger, and if you have disparity in the league, i.e. the top is really far from the bottom, you'll see leagues go to a reduced, less than a double round robin, both to free up weekends so that you have additional non-conference, but also so that your top, you know, doesn't have to play a very soft bottom multiple times. As your league gets stronger or more compact, right, kind of in the rankings, then you can withstand or you can not do harm to your schools by playing each other twice. But again, that's a moving target, and it's something you have to look at every season. And based on our past 2 or 3 years, our council, AD's board felt that we could sustain 20 games and wouldn't be hurting our top teams from chasing national titles.
Gloria, would you consider, I mean, if you do have more data, maybe it supports it, to go back to an 18-game Mountain West basketball schedule and abort the 20-game? Any thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, if the data shows that 20 is bad for us, we would definitely reconsider. No question. We just have to do the deep dive. And we're actually, you know, talking to our committee members once the Final Four is over and emotions have cooled, really get into what they saw in our resumes, what the discussions were, how does that impact what we're sharing with coaches and ADs, and how we schedule.
All right, Gloria Nevarez, Mountain West commissioner. Let's dive into a little bit of football here. We all know the good news is there's a 12-team tournament, and the better news is the Mountain West, if it wins the right football games, is going to be invited to this sucker. But the tricky part is the revenue, which in the last month has been divided. And for those not paying attention, roughly, I mean, the group of 5 teams are going to go from about $1.5 million to $1.8 million under this new 2-year financial structure. The Big Ten and the SEC, they're going from $5.5 million to $21 million. Big gaps. Nobody expected them to be close, including you, Gloria Nevarez, but you put out a statement about a month ago. We are disappointed in some aspects of the memorandum of understanding, but you're still looking forward to being a part of the expanded CFP. In terms of the disappointed part, the revenue part, how close did they come to what you wanted? If it's going from $1.5 million per school per year to 1.8, how much did you really want?
More than what we got. No, just kidding. And it was a process. And as it got negotiated down, it just got more and more disheartening. And certainly, you understand, we didn't have much leverage in the room.
Yep.
At this point, there were threats of taking our ball and going home.
Yeah.
Not us, but will the whole thing survive? And so, on the one hand, I'm very excited and happy that we have, to your point, the good news, we have a 12-team playoff and we have access, which was our number one priority. So that's great. Given the entirety of the value of the contract that's being signed and the fact that G5 or group of 5 institutions represent 47% of the entire ecosystem of FBS, I was disappointed in what we ended up with revenue, but we've always done more with less, and I don't see that stopping. I think we're on an upward trajectory.
As we've shared with you before, we do like to call you Gloria the Gangster around here because you get stuff done. Although we don't say stuff, we say another adult word around here. In this particular case, though, I mean, the real gangster moves was from the Big Ten and the SEC, and they do have all the leverage. You're in those rooms. I mean, there's only 10, 15 people in those rooms, and you're one of the people in those rooms. And we see the tea leaves, and we see the writing on the wall. How worried are you about college football, college basketball, college softball, cross country? I don't care. The Big Ten and the SEC just kind of eventually pulling away over the next 3 to 5 years and forming their own athletic family. Is that really going to happen, Gloria?
Well, I think this is a big wayfinder, being able to agree in the CFP playoff structure. So certainly bought ourselves at least 6 years in that sense. I personally, I fear making student athletes employees. I feel that would be the first step, and maybe schools being forced to cut programs, reducing, the broad-based sport offerings, that type of thing, and not being the college athletic experience environment that we have now. That to me is the existential threat. I don't know if I had to, hypothesize that the 2 or 4, whatever leagues want to split away, but certainly if push came to shove and they had to, i.e. lawsuits, lack of an antitrust exemption, I can see where it might be a survival thing for them.
There was talk at one point that, we just knew that this 24-25 season, there was only the 2-year commitment. You guys just finalized that going into the early 2000s with that 6-year extension. I guess the better news, the best news of all is that there will be access for the group of 5. You're always going to have access into this tournament unless things get really squirrely and change. Was that your number one fight here? Because we've talked about this, and I think we ask you this every single time you come on. Craig Thompson's legacy, getting that access, fighting for the little guy, and it's happened. And there was so much worry there that maybe that would go away after 2026. But you feel pretty comfortable that everything on the table right now, group of 5 is going to have some access, right?
Yes. And to your point, that was our number one priority as directed by our board and athletic directors, and all 5 leagues were united in that, because that's what makes your regular season and your conference championship have value. If you don't have access, what are you playing for? Especially with a 12-team field. Now, like in basketball, of course, teams on the bubble, teams are going to get left out. They're always going to have an argument. But when you have a field of 68, you can, by and large, feel comfortable that the teams that should be fighting for a national title are, right?
Yeah.
So 12 makes it a little bit more compact, but we have a shot to position ourselves to get that spot year in and year out. And what I did appreciate about the process is that was never off the table.
Nice.
That was always on the table.
I was worried about that, so that is awesome to hear. I'm glad to see that. Hey, one more quick question about revenue before we dive into Oregon State and Washington State. And there's, depending on the conference, depending on the commissioner, there's a great debate in college sports right now that's really, frankly, been around the Mountain West for 20 years because of the Boise State buy-in, the escalator with the money that they get extra. The $38 million or whatever the roughly number is you guys have earned over the last 2 years in the NCAA tournament. Are you pro revenue, equal sharing, or are you more of an unequal distributor? Like, for instance, Boise State and whoever dominates football may get more money in the CFP, or should San Diego State get more money out of this NCAA tournament unit money than everybody else in the Mountain West because of what they have done? Are you equal or unequal? How do you attack that one?
I'm in the middle, but closer to equal. I think it's very, very important that you have an equal base of distribution because you need all schools moving forward. As one of the ADs in the top third of our league said to me, it doesn't help us if the bottom of the league gets worse. Everyone needs to be moving upward in the same direction. So I'm a big proponent of an equal base, but maybe it's 80-20, 75-25, like, a large portion equal, but a chunk goes to those schools that have performed, because we all know it's really expensive to go on a Final Four run. It's really expensive to go to a bowl game or a PFP playoff. And schools invest a lot to get their programs to that level and need to continue to invest a lot to keep it at that level. So they should be rewarded. But I definitely am a proponent of a solid base of equity with kind of some acknowledgement and a bucket for performance.
We got Gloria Nevarez with us, Mountain West Commissioner, on the Double Tap Pub hotline. Prater in the Ball Game, Idaho Sports Talk. Oregon State and Washington State. They've got this partnership with you in football. They're going to do something else at the WCC in basketball. But I mean, all in all, where are you, Gloria, right now with this league and just, the relationship with these two schools? I know there's going to be a new athletic director in Pullman. Obviously, you want to be on the same page there, but just in relation to potential full-time membership for these two schools, I'd imagine that's still the plan.
We spent a lot of time on getting that football agreement done, and frankly, we took a deep breath after that and just started focusing on basketball season and creating our football schedule. So we haven't had a lot of big, futuristic type discussions. I think those will probably start to happen as we turn the corner after Final Four, just and really start to get into the football season, because it's only a 1-year agreement. So we're going to have to, spark those conversations again.
Yep.
After Final Four, I think.
Do you anticipate, is that what you want? Would you like this to turn into a 2-year agreement? And maybe, we were talking about Jim Valvano earlier in Dreamers and trying to get things done. As you dream over these next 3 to 5 years, the vision for the Mountain West, do you see, what do you want in terms of, I know things could happen in terms of, the reality of it all, but do you see that the Mountain West and the Pac-2 coming together? What's your vision? And then maybe specifically the 2025 football season.
Yeah, I have much respect for Washington State and Oregon State. I think they look a lot like our institutions. I think they have a lot of commonality and mission value and how they think about athletics. But, this whole thing, not just Washington State, Oregon State, but the entire environment it changes month to month, week by week. And so I really started this journey about, yeah, absolutely, let's go. And then, now I'm like, let's wait and see what the future holds, because who knows where we're going to be, where they're going to be in next month, couple months. It's just, now certainly getting the CFP deals signed, that provides, I think, a level of stabilization that I hope we feel for a while, and should be able to give us a good sense of what the future holds. But also, you just never know. You got a lot of lawsuits out there, and things boiling that could break at any moment. So at this point, I'm taking it week by week.
Gloria, do you think it could ever come to you saying to the Pac-2, we want you, and then the Pac-2 saying, whoa, no, we want you. We want to bring 7, 8 of your schools to keep the Pac. Do you foresee that? Has it got there yet?
Oh, yeah. I feel all of that would be something we'd be open to discussing. The central question to the Mountain West is, will this make our team's league better? And so whatever the scenario is, we have to start with, does this make us better, elevate us, add strength? And so when you talk about merger, reverse merger, all those have so many different iterations, but, we would just have to sit down and say, okay, how does this help the Mountain West.
Gloria, one last question. I appreciate your time. I know we've ran a little bit longer than we asked for your time, but just in terms of spring meetings, I know a whole bunch of meetings are coming up. This is where you guys always meet and kind of plan the future and fiscal years and fancy hotels and big time meetings and important agendas. What's the priority of the Mountain West over the 24-25 school season?
So 24-25, I think, we've got a lot of we just finished our strategic plan. We need to finish up our brand analysis work. We put that on hold a little bit during conference realignment, so dusting that off and running full speed on that. But also we're doing this really interesting thing called threat casting. And we were referred by one of our presidents to a very internationally renowned threat caster. His name is Brian David Johnson out of ASU, and does this work for government, Fortune 500 companies, but basically interviews a lot of stakeholders, industry experts, models potential futures, and then walks us through an exercise about how to think about where we want to be in those maybe 3 to 5 potential future outcomes and what we have to do now and how we think about decision making in order to be ready for those potential outcomes and to position ourselves. So that's kind of some of the big blue sky stuff, plus a bunch of boring conference business things.
Gloria, we appreciate your time. Always treasure it. Love that you come on our show as much as you do, and we'll let you get back to it.
All right. Well, thank you both, and we'll see you soon, I hope.
Hey, by the way, do you hate it that we call you Gloria the Gangster?
I don't know that I'm comfortable with it yet, but you say it's a compliment, so I'm going to take your word for it.
It's a compliment here. And I do apologize without getting too deep in the weeds, as we were in Vegas at Circa a couple of weeks ago for the Mountain West tournament, hanging out late night with Derek Stevens, the owner of Circa. And I apologize for his tweet. I apologize that he sent you that very inappropriate text.
No. There's nothing inappropriate. It was funny, and they've been great partners. What an incredible property. And we're excited to be partners with them on our media day.
Yeah, and we actually talked to him in all seriousness about that relationship and about that partnership, and sounds like it's growing, and we may get a chance to do that again. That's a pretty cool deal. Thank you.
Appreciate you, Gloria.
All right. Thanks, guys.
All right, Prater in the ball game. Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese underway in Albany. Prater, let's check in on that. We come back and just remind you, Sports Radio The Ticket will be your home for the Final Four this Saturday. Our coverage begins at 1 p.m. Prater in the ball game.
From the Beacon Plumbing Traffic Studios, this is Ticket Traffic.